Hey everyone! So, how we feeling after last episode? Yeah? Yeah. None of the player characters felt great either. Not as Karth had just seen the woman he'd grown feelings for taken away by a monster. Not as Mateo went unconscious to hearing his own mother sobbing over him and seeing him shot. And not as Quinn is... Where is Quinn? She expected to be dead once she went through that portal, for there to be nothing, and for a moment, there was nothing. But then she found her eyes opening, and she was alive. But she was taken somewhere odd, as she looked around and found herself in a world that looked crudely drawn with charcoal. She was in a bedroom, on a small bed, and wearing a scribbled white vintage dress. Quinn slowly got up and looked around. She was in a house that was drawn to be nice? She assumed, as there were flowers and butterflies drawn in the front yard. This was supposed to be a home, but it had an uncomfortable and cold air about it. Then she heard a pounding knock. A Babadook. Her heart leapt into her throat as the door to the room opened, and in slinked that smiling monster. The Babadook looming over her, eyes unblinking and mouth stretched far too wide. It looked at her with the sickening glee in its eyes before it gave a beckoning motion. Quinn didn't move. She stayed in a defensive stance as she looked around the room to find something to fight it with. But she took too long. The Babadook then grabbed her arm and began to drag her. Quinn tensed, and every instinct within her told her to fight it, to struggle. But she fought the urge down and instead stumbled after it, deciding that it would be better to just play along. Be docile until she found an opening. Or until her team came to save her. They would come, right? With that thought, we go back to the others. Mateo had been moved to the medical wing and his mother escorted away by Rena. When Mateo gained consciousness again, he was not surrounded by happy faces. Svante looking over him concerned, Tina looking disappointed. Rena, though the most stoic of the leaders, still held a note of irritation in her face. And then Karth, standing in the corner, seething and refusing to look at him. Rena spoke first and asked for an explanation of what happened. Mateo didn't answer. The only thing on his mind is where his mother was. Rena takes an impatient inhale of her cigarette and informs him that she's been moved to a different room, and they're still deciding what to do with her. But first, he needs to answer her. Now. Karth interrupts and informs her of how Mateo gave Natalie over to a monster. He sacrificed her. Mateo winced while Rena didn't move. She just continued in her same flat tone, as she could tell that, but she wanted to know why. So again, she demanded Mateo tell her what happened. He hesitated, but then quietly he told them. He told them what it offered to him, how its voice plagued his mind, and how he just wanted to go home. He wanted to be with his mom again. He didn't want this. This answer enraged Karth, but before he could unleash unto Mateo, Rena held up a hand and stopped him. She coldly informed Mateo that this is why you do not make deals with beings. You never get what you wish. But you had us make deals with demons, and that was fine? Mateo couldn't help but argue. The beings you made deals with were beings we knew. We didn't know this creature. And this is what you get thanks to your own ignorance and selfishness. Rena blew out some smoke as she continued. You will lose 2 levels in your rank, and your wounds will not be fully healed. You will go into your next mission bearing the pain of your own decision. Karthus, you will also lose a rank. Mateo stayed quiet and just sank into the medical bed, accepting this. But Karth was shocked at himself getting punished. He asked, why? And Rena looked over at him blandly and informed him, you shot at a teammate in an area that could have been fatal, as well as an area that could have put Quinn in harm, too. He was sacrificing her, and you expect me to do nothing? I expect you to be smarter about your aim, about your choices. We do not go for the kill with our own teammates, Karthus. Rena replied sharply, and it almost looked like the pupil of her amber eye thinned for a moment. I expect more from you being under my command. So for that, you will be reprimanded as such. No argument. And Karth didn't argue, but he wasn't happy. He didn't want to accept this. He burned with anger and resentment, but stayed quiet. After a tense-filled moment of silence, Mateo finally spoke up again. Please, I don't want my mother to be here. She doesn't deserve this. Please. He looked towards Svante. Get her out of here. Svante looked pained at this request and gave him a look full of pity. He looked to Rena, beseeching some mercy from her. Karth spoke up, saying how Mateo should live with the consequences of his actions. It's what he wanted at the cost of Quinn. Rena was quiet for a moment, before finally speaking and saying how Mateo's mother is innocent. She should not deal with her son's mistakes. She then goes on to explain how they've been recently toying with a new machine that can wipe the recent memories of a person. Since his mother was not hurt and has not been here long, it is possible to use this machine. Mateo hesitated and asked if it had any side effects. Rena assured him that at most she would be left with feeling a bit sick for a couple days, and then maybe a headache now and again. There shouldn't be any other issues for the moment with this short of an erase. Mateo regretted doing it, but he agreed, and slowly nodded. So Mateo's mother was taken to have her memories erased, like the fucking Men in Black, and was being moved back to her respectful home in Spain, while they then moved on to what the hell they were going to do, because they refused to just let Quinn be taken. With that, they met up with Dakota and Imani. As Dakota had previously been researching this book, she was able to find that it held some form of hellish energy about it, making the Babadook a form of lesser demon. Since it was able to do these deeds in their territory, that made it a demon from hell itself and not the plateau. Imani is able to confirm this, stating that he's learned a lot about demonic artifacts from Kadir, and this gives off the energy of one. With them both confirming on this, and the events that have taken place, they reason that Quinn is not dead yet, but in the process of having her soul slowly sucked out within this lesser demon's personal realm that they have made. They would be able to open a portal to his realm by using the book. There, the team would be able to save Quinn, as well as subdue the Babadook, as it should be more susceptible in its own realm. Kind of like fighting the beast within its own heart. Dakota and Imani perform a ritual that utilizes the book to call forth a portal to its realm. They inform the two that they can only keep it open for so long, so they need to hurry. Sadly, they couldn't wait for Adelaide to get back from her solo mission, so Karth and Mateo had to uncomfortably team up to go and to get Quinn, hopping through the portal. Meanwhile, back with Quinn, she was led by the Babadook into a dining room and sat down at a long graphite table, a bowl of charcoal black soup laid before her. She looked up to it in question and just saw its smile stretch wider. It took its clawed hands and mimed bringing the bowl up to its mouth. It wanted her to eat it. Quinn tried to politely decline, but it just responded by dropping a spoon into her bowl with an assertive thunk. She froze as it loomed over her, waiting for her to eat. She could have sworn that its teeth were filing into sharp points from the corner of her eyes. Feeling its presence press down on her, she relented and slowly lifted the spoon to her mouth, the taste of gritty ash lacing her tongue as she struggled to swallow. The Babadook stretched and grew, its aura almost taking over the entire room, just watching Quinn. Until it hears a noise. Suddenly, its whole form snaps back into place of the crudely drawn man, its head turning as a thunk is heard from outside. It then looked to Quinn, its smile growing wider as if mimicking an image of reassurance, holding up a hook of a charcoal finger, wishing for one moment from her as it slinks towards the door, pausing for a step. And then, in startling quick aggression, it takes the nearby cupboard and smashes it into the doorway, looking back at Quinn, its smile now just one of pure, slimy intimidation, thinking it has just successfully blocked off the exit for Quinn. It disappears into the floor and moves to go scope out the entrance. As it shows up at the entrance, it easily spots Mateo and Karth. Immediately a fight breaks out as neither of the men want to talk. Feeling their own flavor of rage, they unleash attack after attack onto the Babadook. Karth shooting at it and Mateo charging, summoning his rock fist and slamming into it. The Babadook lets out a withering screech as it lashes out, its charcoal form stretching out and being frayed, its fingers shooting out into long blades as it slashes at them both, 4 of them piercing deep into Mateo. Mateo, who is left wounded from his mistakes, lets out a cry of pain as the claws sink into him, crimson blood seeping into the paper of this world and staining it. Karth remained coldly apathetic to Mateo's wounds, as he continued to shoot at the Babadook. But Quinn, on the other hand, heard the cries of pain and became panicked. She quickly tried to find a way to escape this room, desperately trying to push against the cupboard to move it from the door. But her rolls were not with her. She began to search the room and found a fire poker near a drawn fireplace. With it, she shattered a large window and jumped out, sprinting around the building to go and aid her friends. There, in the scribbled front yard, the fight and struggle took place, wrestling and shooting the Babadook as it let out wails beyond recognition and slashed with its sword-length claws. 3 of them sink right into Mateo's body again, just as Quinn lands the final blow, spearing it through the back with a fire poker. It lurches forward, gurgling groan coming from it, before finally collapsing into a puddle of ink and drifting ash, mixing in with the pool of blood seeping from Mateo on the floor. Quinn desperately tried to pick up Mateo while Karth urged them to the portal, noting how it was closing. In the mix of panic, Karth put aside his feelings towards Mateo and helped Quinn lift him up, all 3 of them safely making it out at the last second before the portal closed. And the book is closed with it, as Dakota chains it up and marks it with protective seals. The threat of the Babadook comes to a close, just as this part comes to a close, as we will end it there and continue with what happens next time. With that, thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep your heads above water. Bye.